In a new interview from James Cameron on IGN, he talks about Avatar's 4K HDR remaster and how it improves the 3D experience. Plus, he also talks about how nobody would be able to predict the plot on The Way of Water. Avatar Theory here. I hope you're doing well and having a fantastic day. And the following information comes from IGN.com from an article by Max Scoville, and I will leave a link of this article in the description below if you want to read it on your own time. But jumping straight into what Cameron said about the 2009 movie, quote, "I was a little nervous before we started the process that it wouldn't hold up because there are so many big effect movies out there these days. But I'm not nervous now. I was a bit shocked at how good it looks," end quote. Thanks to modern projectors that support high dynamic range, the Avatar remaster was able to address a common gripe about 3D movies. Quote, "It's just brighter at the screen, which is always an issue with 3D because you're putting on glasses that filter out half the light. So the brightness at the screen is absolutely critical for the enjoyment. High frame rate is available. We're using it as an authoritative tool to improve some of the 3D, but we're not just broadly applying it as a format. Atmos 9.1 sound wasn't available at the time, so we remixed the film, remastered it with better sound format. It literally looks and sounds better than it has before," end quote. Now I just want to quickly comment on this, something I've said in quite a few of my other videos about why I personally do not like 3D in cinemas is because it is just much darker. And Cameron kind of confirms here that, when you put on a 3D glass, it filters out half of the light. And I specifically remember, I believe it was the third Iron Man movie. I think it was the third Iron Man movie that I saw in 3D in the cinemas. No, excuse me. It was Age of Ultron that I saw in the cinemas in 3D. And I remember the scene in the ship where the Avengers are fighting Ultron essentially for the first time. And it was just so dark, I could hardly see what was going on in that scene. I just remember Tony Stark speaking, Captain America speaking, Ultron speaking, and I was just like, I see a few flashes of lights when, projector beams and explosions are going on the screen, but I couldn't really see much about what was going on because the projector at the time was so poor in that sense that they didn't support high dynamic range. It wasn't as bright as they are today, and I really didn't like 3D. The way when I watched Avatar initially in 3D, that was fantastic. That was a real game changer for me in terms of what movies could potentially be like. Of course, Avengers Age of Ultron came out much later, but with Avatar being a very bright film in most instances, that is, I think, why it worked at the time. And with Cameron saying that it's going to be even brighter, even better now, really has me excited for this week when I finally get to watch Avatar Remastered in 3D. The article continues, "Many of the improvements made for the remaster were made easier thanks to the quality of Avatar's visual effects when it was first released." Quote, "Weta had done such a good job at the time doing their renders in high dynamic range anyway, even though projection couldn't handle it at the time. We didn't have to do that much. We created a new 48 frame per second interframes to smooth out some of the strobing and some of the rapid camera moves during the Viper Wolf chase, the Thanator chase, things like that, to improve the stereoscopic experience," end quote. Avatar isn't the only one of Cameron's movies getting a remaster, as Titanic will be getting the same treatment for its 25th anniversary next year. While Avatar was always intended to be seen in 3D, Titanic had to undergo a full conversion. Quote, "Most conversions are kinda done cheapo, and I think we spent $18 million on the 3D conversion for Titanic, so it was handcrafted 3D. The goal was to make it indistinguishable from original 3D photography, and I had done so much 3D photography that I knew what to ask for. Obviously, our goal isn't just to put it out and make a bunch of money. The goal is to get it out there as, think of it like a season of Avatar rolling up to the release of the new Avatar film after a decade. A lot of young fans haven't gotten to see it in theater at all. Whether they like the movie or are indifferent to it or only just know about it, they haven't really seen it unless you've seen it in the movie theater. And that would be true even of people who saw it back then. The memory fades of the power of the experience experience in a theater. End quote. Cameron is aware it's been a while since a lot of people last saw the first Avatar. Quote, I don't think you have to treat it like a homework assignment. Just go and enjoy it. And maybe if you know the film, remember, refresh your memory about what's going on here. Reacquaint yourself with Pandora, with Jake and Neytiri, and be prepared for where the new story takes you. End quote. Within the Avatar universe, The Way of Water takes place quite a while after the events of the first film. Quote, we follow Jake and Neytiri forward in time, 15 years to where they have a family of preteens and teenagers. Most of a family dynamic. It's not a Hallmark Disney family dynamic. It's a very dysfunctional family dynamic, but ultimately there's a core there that they all draw their strengths from. I think that's the thing that's fundamentally different from the first one. End quote. And then I just want to touch on the last bit of this article. The last two sequels Cameron made were Terminator 2, Judgment Day and Aliens, two undeniable classics that set an impossibly high bar for their respective franchises. What should we expect from the follow-up to Avatar? Quote, I guarantee you won't be able to predict it. What people hate the most is to go and see a movie and say, oh, predictable. This is not predictable, I don't think. I defy anybody to predict where the story goes. End quote. So quite a bit to take away from this entire article. I mean, I didn't know that Titanic is also getting the Avatar remaster treatment next year, so something definitely I would love to see in the theaters, because I was way too young to really, not way too young, but I was young when the first when Titanic released initially in theaters, so I never saw it in theaters, and when it was re-released in 3D, I didn't get a chance to see it in theaters. So the fact that it is getting the Avatar treatment next year kind of makes me excited to really experience that movie in theaters the way it was probably meant to be experienced. But the fact that, you know, a lot of the scenes are getting the high dynamic treatment, and a lot of the scenes that was a little bit blurry in 3D in the initial viewing in 2009 is going to be much smoother, makes me more excited to watch the remaster. And, you know, Cameron really putting a lot of effort into this just shows how much he really cares about not only the movie itself, but the experience that he wants people to have in the theater. I think that's one of the things that really makes me excited, is that he really cares about the experience and he wants people to enjoy it the way it's meant to be enjoyed. And of course, when he says that that The Way of Water is not predictable, kind of makes my mind go in all sorts of directions. Makes me think, okay, if it's not predictable, like where could it go? Where is it going? What is happening? And you know, it just makes me, there's so many ideas that this goes through my head. So I don't really know what to expect right now. Possibly when I see the new footage of The Way of Water after the Avatar remaster, I'll have a bit more idea when I formulate my ideas. But I will have a whole video on that at a later stage when I see that footage. But what do you think about the high frame rate of the 4K high dynamic range coming to the remaster? And what do you think about Cameron saying that the movie is not going to be predictable? Let me know in the comments below, and for more Avatar content, have a look at the rest of my channel. Until next time, have a fantastic day and stay safe.